Hello everybody and welcome to Bristol Temple Meads railway station. Now sorry for the lengthy intro, however I wasn't too sure how else to do it. Anyway, here I am at Temple Meads station and today is the day of the 2025 Bristol Bus Show. Every year for the past number of years now, the Bristol Bus Show has been held at Brislington P&R and this year they are running feeder services from Temple Meads station. There are 2 in the morning going to Brislington and 2 in the evening going from Brislington back to Temple Meads and into the city centre at the Haymarket. As well as this, there are also circular routes that run from Brislington. There was one to Keynsham, one to Bitton, one to Stockwood, one to the Globe, I wasn't too sure where that one went, and there was one that went into the city centre via the Old Market. Unfortunately, last year I was unable to attend due to personal reasons. However, this year I was able to attend and I'm so glad I could come. There were so many brilliant buses and our first one was no exception. Our first bus was a U-Tongue. No, I'm joking. Our first bus was Badgers. If you don't know what Badgers it's a ex-First West of England Badger Line branded Volvo B7RLE Bright Eclipse Urban. It has been off and on the road for quite a long time. It has had various problems and this is the first major event it has attended in a long time, as it's had so many problems over the past couple of years. It is still in the very retro original First Badger Line livery and still has its old first interior. Here I am leaving Temple Meads, that is stop T1, located at the bottom of the station approach road, heading off to Brislington P&R. If you miss one of the feeder or city centre circular services, you can always use the Stagecoach West Service 9, which operates between Brislington P&R and Bristol City Centre before heading off to Portway P&R. Before the number 9 ever existed, First West of England operated 2 separate P&R services for Portway and Brislington. However, First ditched these P&R services and started operating normal services around Bristol. Therefore, to help keep the P&R services, Stagecoach West offered up the Service 9, which operates between Brislington and Portway via the city centre. Although First have ditched the Park and Ride at Brislington and Portway, they still operate the Long Ashton Park and Ride under the M2 Metrobus service. However, they have also ditched a lot of Park and Rides in the southwest, such as Taunton Park and Ride. They still have Truro Park and Ride, however this is something to do with the council, it's leased or something like that. I'm not too sure how it works.
Oh my, go home. Bloody GX06. Wait, Sam, GX06? I've never seen that one. No, I'm not going on it.
I've never studied that one. I know, not the
It was meant to come down to Taunton, but broke down. Crash. Sam, do it. Adam, do it. Put some rings on that.
As I'm doing it.
Just starts to float. Here we go. Too early to see everything. Why? 2 ALX is going to be here, bro.
No.
2 dark. Special badge.
Look at the bell.
Wow. Why is he just sat there? Bro, this is too close for the store. I swear down. What? Ready? Here we go.
Here I am arriving at Brislington Park and Ride. Along with the regular Stagecoach West buses on the number 9, usually in 400 MMCs in the Stagecoach Beach Ball livery, there are a few other Stagecoach vehicles hanging about as well, such as the Stagecoach Gold Scania in 400s and the Stagecoach Distance in 400 MMCs. As well as the Stagecoach West buses, there were over 60 vintage buses here, old and fairly new, and local bus operators, apart from First, do sometimes take buses to this event. For example, Newport Bus, Chepstow Classic buses and Fairsaver all brought along buses from their fleets. I thought Chepstow Classic and Newport Bus brought along the best fleets, as they still had some quite old buses attending the event. This year, more bus down in Bournemouth did not attend the event. I'm not surprised, this is quite far away from Poole and Bournemouth, so it was quite strange that they did attend the event last year, and surprise surprise, First haven't bothered turning up. Anyway, here is Badgers, a Volvo B7 RLE, arriving into the Brislington Park and Ride and parking up at the out of service areas. At Brislington Park and Ride, there are many car parking spaces. You could still park here, but the car park had been vastly reduced and was basically half of its size. On one quarter, there was this lot of buses, mainly A-bus vehicles and First vehicles. Then you had the bus loop, and then on the other side you had the other quarter, which was being used for much more older vehicles, as well as bus fleets such as Newport Bus and Chepstow Classic. Then there was an entire half of the car park which was being used for normal car parking. It's quite confusing when you describe it, but in reality it's quite simple. I found this event to be still chaotic, but when is a bus event not going to be chaotic? I found it less chaotic than some of the other events, which is quite useful. Anyway, I wasn't here very long at all before I headed off onto the city centre circular on this A-bus DAF DB250 Optes Spectra, otherwise known as Kaiser. A number of these Optes Spectras used to operate on the 349 bus service. Originally, when A-bus started out, they operated the X49, which did the same route as the 349 between Bristol and Keynsham along the 349 route. As well as the X49 being operated by A-bus on a commercial basis, the rival Badger Line 349 did also exist. Then, not too long after that, the Badger Line 349 and A-bus X49 merged, and it just became the 349, and journeys would alternate in a design timetable for both A-bus and Badger Line. This continued when First took over the 349. However, eventually in 2021, I think it was, the 349 was awarded wholly to First, and A-bus lost their final route. Over the past couple of years though, they have operated other routes around Bristol and the southwest, along with other local operators such as City Star and Summerbus. The city centre circular service, which doesn't really go into the city centre, it passes the outskirts of Broadmead and Temple Meads, passes over St Philip's Marsh Depot. I didn't realise the depot was this big. I've seen little bits of it, however, there are little bits of depot and railway storage everywhere, with other sort of industrial estates squeezed in the middle. You honestly get an amazing view of not only the railway depot, but other tall buildings in this local area. Here I am arriving at Temple Way. This is near the Old Market and is the closest stop to the city centre, and this is where most of the buses on the city centre circular were having around a 5-minute layover. After leaving Temple Way, we did the exact same route as the feeder service that Badgers formed earlier before arriving back into Brislington Park and Ride. After arriving into Brislington Park and Ride, I decided to find a few timetables for various routes that operated from the Park and Ride site throughout the city, and my next service was not too long after arriving on this Optare Spectra. As well as this A-Bus Optare Spectra hanging about at the Bristol bus show, which it does pretty much every year, a Heritage Reading Buses Spectra also appeared at the event. However, this didn't do very many, if any, runs at all. Anyway, before I headed on to my next bus, I decided to have a look around at some of the buses on display. Here is the Newport bus fleet and the Chepstow Classic buses fleet, or should I say vehicle, as GX06DYW, as you probably know, has never and probably never will be part of the Chepstow Classic buses fleet. There is the Reading Buses Optare Spectra, as well as the Duport 425 coach. Here arriving off of another local service is a ex-First West of England Badger Line granted Dennis Dart SLF Claxton Point 2. I quite like these, and I did manage to go on it later on in the video, as I did with this Safeguard of Guildford Optare XL. Here are my next two buses arriving at the Park and Ride bus loop, which is where most of the buses were departing from. Both of these buses were first West of England, or ex-first West of England should I say, Volvo B70L Alexander ALX 400, and they were both wearing very similar versions of the first Barbie livery, with one of them wearing branding for the 43 and 45 routes, whilst the other just wore a plain Barbie livery. I went on the non-Hoover first, not realising that the other one was a Hoover, and once I did, I swapped over at the layover point later on in the journey, near Stockwood.
Yeah, he's brought the definition. Have you seen it yet? They got brand new I can't believe there is.
Does it do it when it's fully loaded though? It might be...
Trey's about to find out.
We'll have to take his...
I told him that one. I told him that one.
Here I am, passing through Brislington whilst racing a first West of England Volvo B9TL on my way to Stockwood in the non-Hoovery Volvo B70L ALX 400. This had the old Alexander seats. I think they look quite nice, but they're not actually that comfortable.
Very illegal.
Here I am now at Stockwood, where a lot of people, before swapping onto the Hoovery Volvo B70L and vice versa, decided to get a picture before jumping on. However, I decided to skip out on the picture and head straight onto the other Volvo B70L, which sounded absolutely amazing. I'll be taking this back to Brislington Park and Ride. Here I am arriving back at Brislington Park and Ride. There are a lot of buses that I didn't know were coming at this event right now, so it was rather busy and there was a hive of activity waiting for me at the bus terminal, or the bus loop, whatever you want to call it. And here are the two Volvo B70Ls right next to each other. They pretty much look exactly the same. Before I went out on another trip, this time to Keynsham and back, here are some more videos that I took of the buses on display. Here are the buses, I believe from the City Line collection, I think this is. They had a few older vehicles, as well as an original step entrance Dennis Dart in one of the many first City Line liveries. As well as this, here is a better video of the A-Bus 349 Optare Spectra, which has some very nice 349 branding, and here are some more Dennis Darts, this time with Stagecoach. As well as that, here is another video of the Volvo B70L ALX 400s and the Chandler's coach. Now from here on out it got a little bit chaotic. Badgers turned up as it was meant to on a run out to the Globe, but the other vehicle, which I believe was also supposed to be another Right Eclipse Urban, didn't turn up at the event. So instead, both of the Stagecoach Dennis Dart SLFs turned up instead. So I decided to ditch it for another ride on a DAF DB250 with A-Bus. This time a DAF DB250 step entrance with Northern Counties bodywork. I'll be taking this to Keynsham along the Keynsham bypass. This bus was absolutely amazing along there, and it really pushed the DAF engine to its max.
I think there might be somewhere to. What is it now? Just empty. The joints and stuff out of it. What is it, great? Look at that fish! You have cheap jobs, Bristol? No, I used to. Occasionally see him because his brother-in-law was stood down the road, my road, if you carry straight down the road, we farm. See John, one of them was a stage action, he's bumped into an engagement software. That's what he said. He didn't like anything that was red. He waited for that. His joints. Scarred for life. Yeah, he was. He was scarred, yeah. He killed it. Yeah. So we can still be running, we're going to run Olympians and that. Yeah. Just be good, Could never get quite out of his hand. We took it to yeah. I took it there. Taking it there, Bristol It's an old fashioned is with RCP, so they're all single decks as well. They're all on the LEDs on that. There was a stage I was quite keen on that. It's never been very old. speed at 10 mile an hour rate. It says on the I should be doing 30, it's actually recording. Yes, speed to this man. It was trouble on us there. Trying to cross there. And they were attacking the cars. I think it's about this one. It's a different way. It's different correct. Because everybody and you miss it. And his oldest son, when you say son, must be in his 30s, 40s. And you say, leading out the spin, he goes, you say, Nick, he's up. And he says, well, keep it. He's but, like you said, it's been some serious money on it.
Stop here for a few minutes if you want photos.
It's you in motion.
Here I am arriving back at Brislington P&R, where I just about made my next bus, which took me out to the small village of Bitton, located about halfway between Bristol and Bath on one of the old roads, not on the Keynsham bypass road. Now, my next bus was planned to be the Badger Line then start SLF. However, I decided to swap over midway through the run onto the Denistart, and my bus out to Bitton was the Safeguard of Guildford Octa XL. I unfortunately didn't get a back seat on any of these vehicles, but they both sounded amazing, especially the Octa.
It's just an airbag come off. I think you should drop them 399 and 370.
What's on the field too?
To make our way from Brislington to Bitton, we had to pass through the outskirts of Keynsham once again. This time we didn't stop over in the town centre, and there was no layover point in the town. Here I am arriving at the layover point in Bitton. Now I was quite lucky with this one, however I still didn't get the back seat on the Dennis Dart. I was quite far down the vehicle as it was absolutely rammed, as this time not very many of the people made the swap. However, some people did get out to take pictures and the Dennis Dart left without them, so they were left with the Optare XL along with another older, much older royal blue vehicle which also turned up unexpectedly.
That's one of the most used. Yeah, he goes to right over that.
That's what was said.
Unless you've got more veggie, you can do
Here I am arriving back at Brislington P&R. This was my last good vehicle, as my vehicle on the city centre circular back to Temple Meads was some old cracked out thing, but I did film a little bit of my journey on the way home. Anyway, I really enjoyed that Dennis Dart SLF and the Optare XL. I would say with looks, the Dennis Dart looks slightly better, albeit on the outside, the Safeguard livery does look stunning. However, I do quite like the first bus interior that came with the Olympia livery and Olympia buses, albeit that bus wasn't really in the Olympia livery, it was in the first Badger Line livery. And just in case you're wondering what I got this old thing on the way back to Temple Meads. Anyway, stay around, as something rather peculiar happened that kind of ruined my day. It did, but also didn't.
See just what we tried everything. I'm trying to remember. What year was it? 1949. 49? He thinks he's running home now, doesn't he? 1949. 1949, yeah. Thanks to... Oh, thank you. Thanks to the Oracle. Yeah. Thank you. Don't charge for the service. Don't charge for the service. No, he thinks he's driving out the wrong man, doesn't he? He does, yeah. Just about to give him a bell to pull off, and he decided he was going anyway. Lovely. like that. I remember the history of the two. The front door was automatic, I think. On history of the.
Now, because that bus was very, very busy, here at Temple Way, I decided to switch over to the First West of England number 8 route to take me just down the road to Temple Meads station, as it was one of the Yutong E12s for the number 8 route, which I hadn't been on yet.
Next stop, Temple Way.
Aš va tokio ir nenorėjau scenarijos. Tai jau nebekadėsi. Tas aš užbūzinau ramestą.
Here I am arriving back at Temple Meads station. One thing I have noticed is that especially on the old City Lines route, there are a lot of these Yutong U11DDs wearing the new West bus livery, turning up all over the place. I don't particularly like the look of the Yutong, they look decent, however, in terms of quality, they're pretty poor. Somebody told me on a YouTube video, I think it was, they commented on it a few months ago now it might have been, that they won't rattle for another couple of months, maybe a year, whereas the Alexander Dennis models would start rattling straight away. Well, I don't know if it's like it with the First West of England ones, but with the First Buses of Somerset ones, or First Bus Somerset as they're now known, they're already starting to rattle big time, especially with the emergency doors. Is this going to be the electric version of the right street deck? I honestly hope not, I can't deal with that every single day. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye everyone!